بالله العلي العظيم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. Where's everybody? If you're the only one here, where's everybody else? There we go. Harry. Riaz Hassan. Joining. All right. Not that many people. Hussein said he'll be late. So I'll be reading as well as looking at the participants links in case Hussein is coming. Just turn this on. All right, so here we go. The influx of the Great Testament. This is the third liturgy of the spiritual influxes and sanctifications. Let me start to read this thing. He says, I kindled the meteors and with them burned the adversaries, and I smote the host of the devils and struck their sight with blindness, that they should not behold me as I ascended unto the more luminous assembly. I called upon my Father and said, O master of the noble talisman, O neighbor of the all-bountiful God, take me unto thyself that I may unfold unto the radiance of God. I cast off the skin of darkness and flung it away, and upon the name of God I clung to the throne of glory and majesty. And verily was I annihilated after manifesting forth. For when the peerless self-subsisting revealeth itself unto a thing, it annihilated it. When I emerged from the tenebrousness of gloom into the expanse of the ennoblements, I beheld the marvels and their keeper, and I took up wisdom and splendor and victory and sovereignty and poured them forth upon the people of illumination. The angel hath written in the scroll, God hath forbidden the spirit of wisdom unto any soul that putteth its trust in the world and doth enamoreth itself with the carnal assets of sense perception. For never shall God gather within a single soul the love of wisdom and of the dawning light, together with the love of worldly lusts and riches. The providence of God hath been sealed, that none who is fastened unto an earthly homeland shall tread the court of holiness, nor shall any attain unto the supreme station, save he that supplicated with the full union of thought in the presence of the real. This is Suhrawardi's Platonic idealism in full display via a liturgical language. He seeketh the light amid the darkness of nights, having forsaken ease, is subtle in his contemplations. And when the servant obtaineth a gleam from the horizon of grandeur, and beholdeth the mine of radiant nobility, naught distracteth him from his endeavor. For verily the joy of contentment is a beneficence, and right discernment departeth not from him. Light become easy unto the theosophianic lover, that which the luxuriant deem a burden. He is the consort of care, whom no clime ensnareth, save in utmost necessity. He smileth upon hunger, whilst men in fullness are yet sorrow-laden. And he journeyeth by night unto the light, whilst men in the day lie slumbering in the darkness. God hath magnified the most exalted and most felicitous day in the heavens and upon the earth, and hath lauded them in the scriptures of the ancients. And it inscribed upon the souls of the Orientals that they be hieratic spirits, loving the lights and leaning not into the darkness. And when one among them attained unto the ascent of holiness, a refuge with the holy ones, deputies of illuminations in the solitary temples, they cast upon him the covenant and firmest wisdom. And when he standeth upon the lightning plateau, they hallow him and raise him up into the city of God that standeth in the air, that he may with them visit its sanctuaries. And at the rising are the manifestation of the light and the illumination. This passage very much reminds me of a very interesting passage, or two of them, in one of the Bob's early commentaries, Quranic commentaries, where he relates the vision of himself at Karbala with the shrine of Imam Hussein hovering in the air, and the divine feminine right above it. proclaiming her divinity. It's very interesting. There's very interesting, eerie parallels between these passages. This is the command of God, and the inscription of Hermes is engraved thereon, and the covenant therein bound. The angels are present, and the witnesses stand firm. O ye that are clothed in bodies, magnify him that is above thee, that he which is with thee may magnify thee. And show kindness unto the lowly, that the Most High may show kindness unto thee. Guard well thine inlets and thine outlets, for unto everyone that humbleth himself before God is comeliness. And unto every theosophanic soul is a light that goeth with him whichsoever he turneth. This can be taken as a sort of a distant gloss on that very famous passage in the first chapter of the Fusus that we've read, where Ibn Arabi tells us, to make the outer the protector of the inner, and the inner the protector of the outer. And know ye that the likes of God are the lords of the species, Arbab al-Anwa, having thwart the sanctified care like unto the care of fathers for their children. The virtuous soul yearneth towards its luminous origin, but the inverted soul inclineth unto that which is beneath it of murky lowness. And upon affections are recompenses decreed, for God hath ordained that he should unite those that love one another. But a companionship bring bitterness and scourge. How many a soul hath slit its own throat by its own hand? I love this insight. The gaining hand altered not another, and in the more mournful forms of composite things are admonitions for them that see. And the sight of the holy eyes escapeth the souls by a vision, and the hearing of the heavens perceiveth their groaning. And they cry, O God of the Lords, sanctify me by thy light, gather me unto thy light, and make me one endowed with strength, oft returning, and make me of the chosen elect. This is harkens to the last liturgy in this series. A liar is he who claimeth that he hath known the presence of the real, and thereafter shall they wish that it had not been decreed. And God, the fulfiller, ranges around the orbis as one that circumambulantly walketh. Woe unto thee, O slave of belly, soil, and fate! Thou hast consented that the asses be thy partners, and hast chosen their lot above the fount of radiant nobility, and above the fellowship of the Empyrean, and the grandeur that perisheth not. Remember, O thou deluded one, the day whereon or when the agonies and drowning shall descend upon thee in a covering wave, when the ease shall have departed, and the beloved shall commune with her soul apart from thee, and the regrets abide, when the veil of darkness shall be let fall between thee and God, and return shall be withheld, and the abyss shall draw thee down unto the degree of ignominy. This echoes a lot of the fire and brimstone about hell and the hereafter in the Quran itself, but obviously in the illumination is registered. O thou poor wretch, recover what is on the brink of vanishing before it vanish. For what portion of attainment is there for thee after its passing? He that sleepeth and awaketh not save after the companions have departed, and the hour hath fled, shall find neither friend to sit with in the night, nor light whereby to make comfort in the midst of darkness. And the serpent shall gape his jaws to swallow him, and wailing shall not profit him, nor shall the weeping of the mourners deliver him. O thou that showest off in worship, thou hast committed association, shirk, and thy deed is cast down. Thou layest thy foundation upon the face of the waters, and expected is to stand. Thou seekest the favor of the lesser assembly by earning the wrath of the greater. And the eyes of God are watchful upon thee. For the station of ostentation in the souls is not as the station of sincerity. O brother of procrastination, remember the day of thy death, and delay not thy fear. For tomorrow is absent, and thy day is present, if thy resolve be sound. Why hast thou not chosen for thy soul that which is manifest unto thee above that which is hidden from thee? The sloth of thy day begetteth the habit of sloth for the morrow. Grant that tomorrow be thy day, and today be thy possession. Then do what thou wilt do, for behind the fleeting present is a matter of dire consequence. O thou scholar of wickedness, art thou not ashamed of thy deeds, seeing that after knowledge they are filthiness? Verily, he that fashioneth a precious thing, being aware of its worth, doubtless when he maketh himself needy, is more blameworthy in wasting it than the ignorant who knew it not. What profit hadst thou in the arena when thou didst drown thyself with him that understood it not? Dost thou claim that thou loadest the drowned, while thou art more drowned than they? Surely, this is a claim believed by every heart that is awake. This is totally prophetic. It echoes even some areas of the Gospels, like in Matthew, in several places, and Mark. O thou whom God hath granted a portion of this world, knowest thou not that he who hopeth for the permanence of this perishing thing is as one who would stitch the daylight to his garment that it depart not, or as one who would fasten the shadow with a stake? Beautiful metaphors. Seek not by that which vanisheth what shall write against thee its burden, nor store up the hatred of adversaries for the day of thy pricking. Let not him who is under thy power this day come to rule thee on the morrow. Wrong is a ruin to its own hour, with a ruin that no sorcery of any sorcerer can avert. The return of the wronged one is a stretching forth delay, but not neglected. A king that shineth not by the light of wisdom and justice is like a beast set upon a throne, or like a wolf to whom a flock hath been delivered. For every short-sighted one there is a regret, and for the short-sighted among kings there are manifold regrets. Beautiful. Although man of understanding, be not content to lose thine afterlife for the gain of thy worldly estate. For the worst of profits is the passing gain which draweth upon thee an abiding loss. The angels, by the command of God, have taken it upon themselves to pour forth blessings upon everyone whose intention, word, and deed be sound. And they requite the treacherous by cutting off provision, and recompense the greedy with deprivation. O thou poor one, guard thy thought. Take heed lest thou gather unto thyself the poverty of both abodes. O thou envious one, there is no remedy for him whose sickness is the health of another. How easy is it for thine adversary to torment thee for his own delight? For every sinner is a chastised one, but the envier is chastised twice. Beautiful. O thou talebearer, thou bearest witness before him to whom thou slanderest of thy own treachery, and informest him that thou wilt betray him likewise. For the souls have their measures, and the affairs their confusions. God hath deposited honor in truth, and abasement in falsehood, and perfection in that whose two ends are severed from the bonds of the body, in temperance such as no speaker with the tongue can fully express. And verily, he that busieth his soul with that which hindereth it, not from that which behooveth it, and he that neglecteth thought in his thinking, his thought shall be prolonged after both have gone far upon their consequences. And the beginnings of motions are stirrings that stay not security. Hasten therefore to the exclusion of that which righteousness requireth, and to repelling the call of corruption. For indeed, tranquility hath been set in the insight and in the governance of apprehensions. O brethren of reality, Ikhwan al-Hareda, let not vain hopes hold dominion over them, nor let petition seem sweet unto them when illumination cometh unto them in the attractions of the real, stripping them bare. When they journey unto it, they shall have in the stations many standings. There is no one forbearing save through knowledge and witnessing, and none findeth rest save by forsaking superfluities. He that calleth unto God is the vicegerent of God. Now of Allah. The worth of a man is according to his knowledge and his patience, and victory is but a holder fast to the skirt of him that is resolute and steadfast. Lamentation over what is past is a second calamity. If grief profit thee not, then waste not the virtue of patience, for that which is decreed shall not be turned back. When the dispenser of bounty decreeth in one's favor, it maketh him patient, and thereby giveth him sight. But if decree against him, it blindeth him. And when it sendeth abandonment, it maketh counsel faithful and sloth beloved. But when success is ordained, it sendeth wakefulness. And when it willeth, it prepareth the means. If the time be for thee, that which was shut shall be opened unto thee, and if against thee, that which was open shall be shut. And with God, for everything that cometh to be is a measured decree and an appointed time. He that keepeth in his forbearance what he letteth forth upon others, and what others let forth upon him, escapeth the evil of the sinner, and shall not be taken to task. That is that which is brought upon him by another. He escapeth the evil of the sinner, save that he be taken to account. What hath been read in the exalted tablets and the words of holiness have their manifestations in, and the promise of God is true. And the victory of the company of illumination is decreed. The eyes of God behold the offerings of nearness, and heareth them by the proclamation of the versicle signs of the influxes, which are the mother of the book. This is an outright, unequivocal claim to a station beyond your average claim to Wilayah in Islam. He is claiming here very unequivocally that these liturgies are ayat, versicle signs, just like the Quran, and he's basically claiming these liturgies as being part of the mother of the book, al-Kitab. This is Suhrawardi very unequivocally claiming an analogous station to the Prophet Muhammad. Which raises the question, it raises several different questions that I kind of broached in the introduction, because this is not Islamic orthodoxy by any stretch of the imagination. Quite the contrary. Number 4, the influxes of the lights. This is my favorite one. And it is the inmost depth of reality, and by aught resembling it, it is never beheld. O tongue of holiness, Ya Lisan al-Quds, thou wast under our watchful eyes when the night was dark and the gate of the temple was shut, and the clouds poured forth, and the thunderbolts were cast about, and the city was in tumult, and the valleys were in flood, and the enemies of God were bewildered. Then the witnesses arose, and the witnesses cried unto the witnesses, saying, O ye witnesses, take ye this bird, and restore it unto the God of all the worlds. Verily, and then God speaks, verily I am God, the God of gods, the sustainer of all, necessary existence, possessor of majesty and splendor. Holiness is my precinct, and sovereignty is my carpet spread out, and grandeur is the pavilion of my canopy. I created pre-eternity, and by it I made manifest the antiquity of my beneficence. And I created post-eternity, and by it I established the perpetuity of my bounty. The firmness of my dominion is not confined within times possessing limit, which the thoughts of the erring might encompass. The worlds are illumined by my light. The lights of my angelic world are the fountains of life and radiance. They neither die nor do they incarnate. The light which thy indications receive is but a light amidst the seats of darkness, imploring moisture beneath its station. Its attainment is for another, and it standeth not by itself that it might be manifest unto its own essence, even as it shineth for another that possesses life and awareness of appearing. But the pure light which standeth by itself for its own essence is living, and the indications of those who point cannot overshadow it. With me there is no dead, nor friend of the dead, no darkness, nor friend of darkness, and none ascendeth unto me, save that which resembleth what is with me in body. And I love not the lover of the body. Very Gnostic, capital G. O children of dust, forget not thy celestial lineage, for we created thee from knots of darkness, that we might behold what ye would do. And if ye cease not from leaning towards the likenesses of oppression, then verily we shall return thee unto a narrower knot, and ye shall know that affliction abideth therein. O most luminous daughter, Ya Walida al-Anwar, Fall not in love with the darknesses, O offspring of life. Let not the dead enemy ensnare thee. Let not him who liveth by thee cause thee to perish. Thy body quickeneth, yet its quickening dieth. Wilt thou prefer the pleasures of the beast over the pleasures of the bridal chamber? Verily, that is manifest idolatry. Had that which is with thee been more perfect, I would have chosen it for myself and for my angels. Know ye the sanctity of God, whilst ye are in the heedlessness of the celestial wastes, creatures of passion whom death approaches not. And ye, O sons of the decaying husks, are the beasts that dieth. Yet if ye require the nearnesses, I shall make these, after thou hast been but animal, such that the ages shall not corrupt thee. For the life of the living in its very oneness is better than the life of the animal. For it is light in its solitary essence, and light alone is the measure. And from the darknesses the lights are beheld by the greater watch. How that ye have been made as beasts whose living is bound unto that which slayeth. Therefore, choose ye rather it who quickeneth in thee, for by it ye shall live. And choose not the darkness wherein ye neither die nor are raised. If worldly life be sweet, how is it that ye love not its mind? How is it that ye have chosen the fountain of death over the fountain of life? Verily, this is a bargain that no sound-hearted one would approve. Sounds so biblical and gospel. You know, it's so much in here. The pure lights are with me, and all else is but sparks in darkness, that by them the phantoms of the dead may be quickened, and the embodied ones may be illumined. Totally Gnostic idea that sparks hidden in matter. I created the lights, those stripped of matter, the governors of the heavens and the earth, from the beams of my most proximate radiances. They whose absorption in my majesty veiled them from beholding the luminous persons. They are the most bountiful, the most excellent, and the primordial noble company. And what ye have seen of the work of it who brought wonders. What we behold are but the shadows of that which behold not, what ye behold not. The glorified intelligibles are the firm stations, and were it not for the love of the Most High, the low would have been effaced. For yearning of my lights, the heavens are moved unceasingly, and thereby endureth the outpouring of events. And were it not that what is had been, ye had not been, nor had the changeable ones been made to change. These are the fruits of longings. How is it then that ye long not, that ye might attain unto the kindling flames that stir the souls, even as transient things receive from the ever-circling, everlasting heights? Verily, for the yearning ones in the book is a clear remembrance. Magnify Hurash, the intense, the vanquisher of dusk, the king of the angelic world, the chief of heaven, the maker of the day, by my command. For he is the exemplar of my majesty, and he is a ray of Shahrivar light. And Shahrivar light with me is honored and regarded. Honor ye the seven mighty ones, the captains of the bodies, whereby one draweth nigh unto me. Lo, here is the leader of felicities, and the leader of overmastery, and the swift of command. Remember them in thy psalmody, that ye may obtain the blessings. To magnify the workmanship is to magnify its maker. This is such an important point. Whoso despises it hath part in the defilement of its possessor. According as ye have discerned of my working, so have ye known my perfection. Woe unto the ignorant! How bold are they against the Lord of the worlds! May God abase the soul that hath entrusted its life unto mere habits. Then imagine that the lofty bodies of the noble ones were but dead and unfeeling. I created not the vile, else had I abandoned the honor of the creation that is mine alone, but I began with the most perfect, then the next in perfection. Had I inclined to the fashioning of the base while the noble were non-existent, then were non-existent before which is farthest from it better than existence. That which the intellects have poured forth is not vain, nor have I sent whom I have sent that he might alter the reason, for that he might sustain it. Reflect and be rational. For the best of thought is that which leadeth unto the spirit of certainty. Had it not been for the abasement of the Jews in the sight of their Maker, the reality would not have been veiled from them beneath the parables of the tradition. They hardened themselves, wherefore hardness was laid upon them, and they were cast into the ignominy of humiliation. Have they not reflected? Those who were overthrown were not so as to save by farthest distances. For if the rational essence of things had been in their bodies or from them, nay, even the spans of the whole could not contain it, therefore they perceived it not. This is very Quranic. It is addressing a community that has failed to reject two prophets within that larger Abrahamic lineage, namely Jesus, and then after him, obviously, Muhammad, the messenger of God. And lo, by the subjugation of the part over the whole, it established it by circumscription and enumeration. Then it is stirred to seek that which is without end beyond it. And if they were returned to the altering of the measures of their own outcry, they would know that they themselves are beneath it. And doth sensation endure concerning a thing while its parts are forgotten? It is the luminous breath of God subsisting without a whence, and from God it is its rising, and unto God is its setting. But the people of dullness are concerning it in a deep shadow. O ye people, we have chosen thee above the mute things, therefore let the thankfulness of speech be remembrance. And we have distinguished thee with thought, therefore let the limit of thought be reflection and knowledge. And worship God abundantly, and let thy place of prayer be the temples of light. Cleave unto the lantern of the pine coal, for she is the daughter of holiness and the vicegerent of the lights. This is Suhrawardi's concept of the Shekinah. Say unto my servants, verily I am the most perfect light, the all-subduing, and I have veiled myself by the fullness of my luminosity. There is no remoteness from me, nor any joining unto me, and from me there are present essences of intellect, each one set apart in ranks and deliverance, every essence by itself, while all the orders of being are drowned beneath the ray of the glorifications. False is he that claimed I desired non-existence. Existence constrained me, not that I should make known my worth through annihilation. And verily, I have inspired unto the Imam of discourses, meaning Suhrawardi himself, that I am God, everlasting in beneficence, and the people of idleness are void makers. Not subdueth me, but I am the subduer of darknesses by light, and the subduer of lights by my light. I repent not of what I have wrought, nor did I awake after slumber, neither was there any act for that which I would have ceased from standing in justice, and I am not of the changeable. This is a vague echo of the Ayat Kursi, the throne verse of the Quran. Never have I decreed a matter more honored with me than Bahman light, for he is the first I brought forth, and I cast into his essence the exemplar of my perfection. And by him I originated the exalted ones, and alun upon firm ordinances. All the exalted are intellect and light. The rays were reflected in the high realms, and the lights were multiplied. And by them I measured the numbers of humankind. The affair looked unto the dominion of its Lord, and became enamored of itself in disappointment. Wherefore I brought into being from that misplaced longing a shadow in the congealed ones. And among the witnesses of the sovereign, there's one of the flashing brightnesses. And among the minuyan, this is a Avestan term, there's a pebble in man, or the celestial ones. There's a pebble in man according to the risings of the house of Bahman. Hallow ye the house of Bahman light, the kings of the house of Bahman light, companions of the court of the Imperial. And thy father, the mighty one of the angelic world, the spirit of Sraosha, magnify him with long sanctification, for ye shall be fed with the wheat of light, and ye shall be raised unto the vast world. O beloved of the light, persevere in the traits of the flashing ones. Let not the phantoms of paradise reach unto thee, lest ye become sealed and arched over. Verily, the wretched in the darknesses are dwellings which they build for themselves, and shadows which their condition requireth. Hath not the sleeper seen that whereon he lieth, he behold it as a solid likeness, and see its form and its structures? Thought, though the hollows of the skull have no breadth to contain them, and the one abstracted from the lights is an emanator unto its manifestations, according to its qualities, in forms of polished substance, which the eye containeth not. Nor did the depth of the outward remain by their farness, nor are they ascribed unto any place. A reminder for the reflectors and for the deniers of such a resurrection, there is chastisement. Evil indeed is it for a people wandering bewildered in the wastes. How much time we have? I've read for 30 minutes. I will read this fifth one as well, which is the first of the prayers or invocations proper, as a single item. The number 5, the influx of sanctification for each great station, the glorification to the intellects, the souls, and the elements. Welcome be to the dawn of illumination, and glory be unto God, the light of lights. Hail unto thee, O originator, O beginner of all beginnings. I behold thee loosening my fetters. Show me the vanishing of my grief. Lighten thou my burden. Ease thou the weight upon my back. Yea, God hath there ordained the opening of the gate, for I fear lest the friends of Satan beguile me. I beheld the earth quaking and the heavens trembling, and without doubt the command of God hath descended upon them. Know that thou brightest me unto God, the Lord of the worlds. Verily, I ascended unto the Malakut, or the angelic world, and I beheld the marvels, the vast expanse, and the light. I took hold of the book and the holy light, and I drew down blessings upon the world, and I sent forth consecration upon water and clay. I hallow in the book of my Lord, God, the light of the light, the most mighty, the most strong, the most grandiose, the most noble, the upholder of all the egoities, the necessary being, the order of the worlds, the possessor of the Chorah, light of glory, expansively outpoured, the most victorious light, the most elevated splendor, the most intense radiance without bound, the originator of aeonic time, sempiternity, and everlastingness, the sustainer of pre-eternity by post-eternity, the ariser established in sovereign power, subduing over the totality of the quiddities, Or-Mast, the creator of the cosmos, Or-Mast Datar Kehan, that is a Vestan term. God, the one unique, Al-Wahid, to whom belongs the absolute unity from every aspect, doer of wonders, bestower of intellect and life, manifester of identities, the one who is beyond virtue, nobility, description, utterance, comprehension, and indication. The God of gods, the light of lights, to it belongs sanctification, praise, glorification, and exaltation, by which the high ones are blessed. Sanctification of Bahman, the light, the first intellect. I hallow the servant of God, the most mighty veil of God, the greatest light of God, the supreme craft of God, the first archetype, the most proximate holy one, the angel of angels, the chief of the victorial lights, Kat Chodah, or chieftain of the Malakut, angelic world, in the presence of holiness, Bahman, the light, the sphere of Atlas, the second intellect. And I hallow its exalted shadow, free from all afflictions, the utmost body, the limit of signs and motions, and its sanctified souls, enkindled with the ray of Bahman the light, the possessor of outpouring and Chorah, and the lightning that pierces through the loftiest of the lofty. The intellects. I hallow the victorial lights most high, fountains of grandeur, of splendor, of beauty, of perfection, and of nobility, the lords of the talismans of all the heavens and the earth, the chiefs of the Malakut and the Jabarut, the imperial, the pure and most honored servants of God, the bearers of the beaming suzerainty and the flashing rays, the holy glorifications and the ranks exalted, the possessors of the souls of those who descend by the command of God, the grandiose, the angels. I hallow the rational souls, governors of the body, lovers of the victorial lights and the rays of the mighty ones of holiness, movers of the celestial spheres in obedience to God, the overpowering lights, the esfahbads of the heavens and the earth of the pure ones. Suhrawardi, using military terminology to describe the ranks of the lights. The sphere of the fixed stars. I hallow the companion of the fixed stars, the victorious lights, perfected, pure, and proximate, and I hallow the fixed stars themselves in their lofty and noble abode. The sphere of Saturn, the third intellect. I hallow for the exaltation of God, the intense, victorious light, the resplendent and the great, the possessor of grandeur and of subjugation, the lord of the talisman of K1, Saturn. And I hallow the obedient servant of God, K1, the exalted father, the luminous liege, lofty yet humble, of great estate, of mighty command, profound in thought, far in vision, emanating cold and dryness, the master of glorification, of singularity, and of instruction of trials concerning dignity, strength, subjugation, and steadfastness, all attributes of Saturn. And I extol his radiant person and his noble soul, and I hallow his lofty, sanctified, and noble abode. The sphere of Jupiter, the fourth intellect. I hallow for the exaltation of God, the intense, victorious light, orienting light with divine visions, perfect and supreme love, the Father of blessings, the fountain of goodness, justice, love, and concord, Lord of Jupiter with its talisman. And I hallow the obedient servant of God, Jupiter, the decisive Father, prevailing, manifest, luminous, the greater benefic, the clement, possessor of knowledge, justice, and truth, of khura, of beauty, victory, noble virtues, asceticism, and fidelity, of great resolve and succor, and I extol his radiant person, his noble soul, and I hallow his lofty, sanctified, and noble abode. The sphere of spheres, the fifth intellect. I hallow for the exaltation of God, the intense, victorious light, possessed of grandeur, of powers, of mighty predominance, of piercing brilliance, the Lord of Mars, which is his shadow. And I hallow the obedient servant of God, Mars, the excellent, the courageous, the prevailing, the victorious, master of subjugation, of might, of stern power, of the enkindled fire, and the awe-striking radiance, possessor of heat and dryness, of strength and severity, and I extol his radiant person and his noble soul, and I hallow his lofty, sanctified, and noble abode. The sphere of the sun, the sixth intellect. I hallow for the exaltation of God, the intense, victorious light, sagacious and strong, possessor of the mightiest awe and the greatest tremendousness, radiant, luminous, the son of the Malakut, the adornment of the noetic world, Shahribar, the light, the lord of the talisman of Huraksh, the intense, which is a shadow. And I hallow the obedient servant of God, the Father, the Lord Huraksh, the intense, sagacious, and wise, the lamp of the world, the king of the planets, mediator of order, the chief of heaven, the most luminous person, the brightest star, the subjugator of dusk, the maker of day, perfect in powers, the treasurer of wonders, awe-inspiring in majesty, self-sufficient in his light from all the stars, who gives them light but takes none from them, who clothes them with triumph, splendor, radiance, and illumination. And I extol his radiant person and his noble soul, and I hallow his lofty, sanctified, and noble abode. The sphere of Venus, the seventh intellect. I hallow for the exaltation of God, the intense, victorious light, the splendid, the beautiful, and the radiant, possessor of love and comeliness, perfect in passion, sanctified and luminous, the Lord of Venus, which is her shadow. And I hallow the obedient servant of God, Venus, the resplendent, the bright and shining morning star, of charm and grace, of harmony, generosity, and perfection, of fragrance and temperance, of affection, noble character, and song, of instruments of delight and joy. And I extol her radiant person and her noble soul, and I hallow her lofty, sanctified, and noble abode. The sphere of Mercury, the eighth intellect. I hallow for the exaltation of God, the intense, victorious light, sagacious, radiant, and shining, the emanator of the light of truths and of mysteries, the Lord of memory, which is his shadow. And I hallow the obedient servant of God, Mercury, the luminary, the learned, the noble, the rational, the perfect, the articulate, the truthful, possessor of proof, of vision, of acumen, of disputation, of the book, and of the secrets of sciences and reckonings, the scribe of heaven, the helper of the planets in transit, and extol his radiant person and his noble soul, and I hallow his lofty, sanctified, and noble abode. The sphere of the moon, the ninth intellect. She should be the 10th intellect, but anyway. I hallow for the exaltation of God, the intense, victorious light, the luminous, the radiant, the shining, the impregnable, and the splendid, endowed with beauty and virtues, the Lord of the moon, which is its shadow. And I hallow the obedient servant of God, the moon, the vigilant, the noble liege, the lamp of the stars, the night of the spheres, the vizier and vicegerent of Huraksh, possessor of moistures, supplier of waters, bestower of colors, master of the heavens, swift in command. And I extol his radiant person and his noble soul, and I hallow his lofty, sanctified, and noble abode. The master of intellects of the elements. I hallow the master of the talisman of fire, that by him fire may be sanctified. And I hallow the master of the talisman of air, that by him air may be sanctified. And the master of the talisman of water, that by him waterified. And the master of the talisman of earth, that by her earth may be sanctified. And the lords of the talismans of minerals, that by them minerals may be sanctified. And the lords of the talisman of plants, that by them plants may be sanctified. And I hallow the lords of the talismans of animals, that by them animals may be sanctified. The active intellect. I hallow the intense, victorious light, the Lord of the talisman of humanity, the Holy Spirit, the giver of life and grace by the command of God Most High, the governor of the elemental world, the active intellect, the emanator of the talisman of rational souls, the master of triumph and overcoming, Sraosha, the light, that by him the noble species of humankind may be sanctified. Here, Suhrawardi is equating Gabriel and the archangel Sraosha of Zoroastrianism. The souls of the prophets. I hallow the rational souls of the bearers of the divine missions, those established in transcendent wisdom, the treasurers of the mysteries of the Malakut, the bearers of the holy Chorah, those resembling the principles whose prayers God heard in the depths, and whom it commanded the angels to exalt above all. The souls of the abstracted from among the wafers, the Mujarideen. I hallow the souls of the Abdal, the solitary ones who face the Orient, and the seekers of goodness. And in all sanctifications I seek first and last the good pleasure of God Most High, the end of all desires, the ordainer of existence. Sanctified by the hallowing remembrance of God are water and salt, pine and fire, the rivers and winds and clouds and mists and rains, and the sea and the mountains and the wildernesses, and the fields and the villages and the cities, and the caves and the houses, and the myrrh and the storax and the cedar, and the frankincense and the noble parts of dust, and the delight of the two heights, and all that is completed, that which is drunk, and that which is eaten, and that which is worn, and the vessel, and the tree standing, and the vine and its produce, and the vigil, and the substance folded for the souls powerless of laws, and the men devout, and the women devout, and the steeds of the fields, and the camels bearing burdens, and the oxens tamed, and the sheep reared, and the goodly beasts and birds that soar, and the milks and the fruits, and the seas of temples, and the land of prayer, and the lamp of the mihrab, prayer niche. God hath enjoined sanctification upon the noble nations, and placed it upon the tongues of the fathers sent forth in the dominion of the first and the last. And the angels bear witness to this, and the Lord is fully aware thereof. And for every holy one is a blessing. So draw ye blessing, and remember the names of God in its sanctification, that virtues and gleamings may be perfected within thee, and that you may attain felicities on the day of emergence. Yawm al-Khuruj. And praise be unto the bestower of intellect and perfection, the emanator of being and beauty. Amen. And this was the third, fourth, and fifth of the liturgies. And next week, we will go through the influx of recollection and the 7 prayers to the planets. The floor is now open to you. I have been reading for approximately 45 minutes. whatever you want to say. Who wants to go first?
Let me start this time. So, about the influxes of the light, which is the second one, it is
Where God
just
speaks.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I think the sole intention of it to reciprocate the Quran in all of its glory, not
Yes.
only in its archetypes and symbol, but also in its literary style. It is even a step higher than the tale of Occidental exile in this sense.
Well, it's higher than that because in that he only gets to see the active intellect. Here he's gone beyond the active intellect, and it's the light of lights itself that speaks through him. Yeah.
Exactly. In the point 14, he's referring that Allah Ta'ala is inspiring him, and Sheikh Suhrawardi represent himself as Imam al-Buhus,
Mm.
the leader of the directly, as you're saying, referencing him as prophetic authority.
Yeah.
Uh, Here, if we take the Quranic ayah, which is فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Roughly meaning, if you are claiming prophecy, then bring at least
Yeah.
one surah
Like it. Yeah.
similar to the
Yeah.
Quranic surahs.
It's the tahaddi. He's making a tahaddi. Yeah. This is pretty much what's going on. Yeah.
Yes, and here is the answer of it. Because, at least for me, here when I'm reading, this ayah has double meaning. The first one is to refute the false impostor, but the second meaning is to prove indeed the ones who are divinely inspired. Uh, From this one, I want to pay little attention to number 9, page 25. Woe into the ignorant, how bold are they against the Lord of the world? May God abase the souls that has entrusted its life unto mere habits, then imagined that the lofty bodies of the noble ones were but a dead and unfleeting. Speaking about the celestial spheres, their souls, and so on, that these people, they are so engulfed in materialism, in lowly habits, and so on. They are, in sense, the lowest of the creation, but on other hands, they think that there is nothing higher than them. That all the heavens, their spheres, and so all, and nothing more than that matter.
Mm.
Then, proceeding, I created not the veil, else had I abandoned the honor of the creation that is mine alone. But I began with the most perfect, then the next in perfection. Had I inclined to the fashioning of the base, while the noble were non-existent. Then were non-existence before that which is farthest from it better than existence. Here again, the number 9, in this passage, I think that Sheikh is referring to the principle of Imkanul Ashraf,
Yeah.
that if the lower exists, that is clear evidence that if we can imagine the higher of rank than it, that the higher definitely also exists. Because if we accept the opposite, that would mean that God intentionally create the most based and profane things, deliberately omitting to create higher and nobler in rank than them.
Mm.
And the last part of it, of number 9, that which the intellects have poured forth is not vain, nor have I sent whom I have sent, that he might alter the reason, but that he might sustain it,
Mm.
reflect, and be rational. For the best of truth is that which leads unto the spirit of certainty,
Ruh
Ruhul
al-Yaqin.
Yakin.
This is there is so much in here that both echoes the Quran, as well as just general um, ethics, the falsafat al-akhlaq, the philosophy of ethics that we have in Islamic philosophy. Because what he's saying is very important. Because in the Quran and in the Hadith narrative, we have the separation of eras. One is marked as Jahiliyyah, right? And the other one is the Islam, right? So the Jahiliyyah is the La ilaha, where there's no God, and the illallah represents the Islam itself, but God. So this is precisely what Suhrawardi is echoing. And it's interesting that he's phrasing it in this liturgy for his own time, because he's saying that in a sense, he's saying that the predominant society of his time is like the Jahiliyyah of the time of Muhammad in Mecca, right? So if we look at it from that archetypal point of view, then Suhrawardi is basically, with what he's saying here, is that the same issues abide and the same kind of figure has arisen to remind the people of the world, right? That, he's not here to upset reason. You people are the unreasonable ones. He's here to reset the balance, to reset the mizan, the al-mizan in the law, right? Which has gone out of whack. And it also justifies a very poignant but subtle point that the Quran itself says, that whatever a given society or a given people are thrown into imbalance by their own, ignorance, then that is when God makes its appearance amongst that people and sends an envoy, a Safir. Well, that is a Quranic argument. And so Suhrawardi is basically saying exactly the same thing. He's making the same claim and on the very same reasons as the Quran.
And the manifestation of this type of Jahiliyyah were on many places. For example, the goofy Sufis, which are saying it is all experience, the reason, the reason it have no any importance and so on. One example. Another example, the stupidity of mutakallimin who are saying that good is what God has said that it is good. And with no any reference to the internal nature of things. For example, if God has said that lying or killing or adultery was good, it would be good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
Because God said so. Yeah. An argument that is refuted in Plato himself in several of his dialogues. That just because the gods say something is so or something is good is not the basis, not the logical basis of his goodness, right? This is actually an extremely nihilistic argument and fallacy that religionists of all hues, not just Muslims, they all have always fallen into, where even though from one theological point of view, there is a justification to say that the book, in a sense, is a touchstone, but yet from another point of view, to merely outwardly, assert that because the book says so, it is good without any examination as to why. Bila kaif, which is the point of view of the Mutakallimun, and particularly the Ash'arites, not the Mutazilites. Mutazilites went in the opposite extreme. So, that's pretty much the case. Yeah.
Because he's saying the ones who are sent down by God, prophets, and so on, their purpose is not to reject the reason, but exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
To aid the reason to reach the heights which he on himself is not able to.
Which then raises the question, this is what Imami Shiism began to answer in both versions of it, whether in the Ismaili or the Imami, as to what is the main meaning of aql. Do we mean aql as in reason, instrumental rationality, or the way that the Hellenistic philosophers define what reason is, or does aql entail something more multifaceted, far more all-encompassing than that? And the Imamis very early on answered that question, right? And that's why I think the true translations that we have of this word, whether by Muhammad Amir Ali Mu'ezzi in his first book, The Divine Guide in Early Shiism, or whether my friend Idris Samawi Hamid, these two terms encapsulate what we mean by that term. Mu'ezzi translated aql as high-row intelligence, right? Sacred intelligence, high row, it's both sacred and higher intelligence. And Idris translated it as nexal consciousness, right? Which is also a good gloss, although I think both of them together kind of detail the general Ismaili and Imami understanding of what aql actually is. Suhrawardi is not just leaning from one or the other. It seems to me that Suhrawardi is assenting to both definitions of what aql is. He is taking the common Hellenistic understanding of aql, of reason, right? But he's also then subscribing or plugging in aql from that Hellenistic definition of aql into that esoteric and theosophic conception of aql that we have with the Ismailis and the Imamis. So he's doing both at the same time. And just remember that very famous hadith that occurs also in Kulaini. I think it is in the book of Aql al-Wajah, the first book of the Usul Kafi, where it's the Abu Abdullah alayhi salam says that whosoever does not possess aql possesses no religion. So that the basis of true religion is the possession of that higher intelligence, nexal consciousness, qua reason. So there must be that reason. Without it, you're not, you're just doing taqlid, which I find so ironic, given that Shiism, at least Imami Shiism, has now, degenerated over the last 200 years into a religion of taqlid, purely. Yeah.
I just want to make one more remark before giving the stage to the others. The next one, the influx of sanctification for each grid station. It explains the whole ontology and cosmology,
Yep.
encompassing in its everything.
Yes.
The spheres, the four elements, the three kingdoms, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And in the ending remark, he says, "And for every holy one is a blessing. So draw ye the blessing, and remember the name of God in its sanctification, that virtues and gleanings may be perfecting within thee." What I get from it, that everything is holy one, because everything which we can imagine was already included in this
Yes.
prayer. So everything we can imagine in the same time can be intermediary for us to turn to God. And not only that, that everything is Holy One in its own right, but He has in itself specific blessing which we should attain through it, referring to God.
Yep.
And the other thing, he is combining that we should combine while we are using it to refer to God with the dhikr of God, which is, at least for me, similar to what Sheikh Al-Akbar is saying, huwa la huwa. That this thing is intermediary, but in the same at the same time it is direct divine manifestation.
Yes, that's what he's saying. And that's why he reprimands in the second liturgy, the third one. He reprimands those who deprecate the creation. Why? Because when you deprecate the creation, you're actually deprecating the creator. Right? So if this whole shirk consciousness that you have amongst exoteric religionists, right? Everything is shirk. Every thought is shirk. Every this is shirk. Every that is shirk. In essence, itself is shirk. Because by deprecating this, whatever it is, you're deprecating its ultimate source, right? This is an extremely novel approach to the question of Tawhid, but it is one obviously that Ibn Arabi completely agrees with, as we're reading. But this is why this sort of perspective rubs a lot of the exotericists, the Ahl Zahir, the wrong way always, right? Because it makes their entire conception of religion, let alone Islam, completely look childish, ridiculous, and in itself a form of idolatry. So, but I mean, he is careful, just like Ibn Arabi is, to actually, and given his Platonic idealism, to actually demarcate what kufr really is versus what it isn't that they think it is, which is a very interesting kind of juxtaposition. Because with Suhrawardi and then obviously the Akbarians, the whole notion of what kufr is and what shirk implies gain a completely different understanding from that period onwards, outright as doctrine in both schools, whether with the Ishraqis or the followers of Ibn Adam.
This is particularly important for me because
Can you speak higher?
excuse me,
No
do you hear me
yeah, that's
better?
fine. That's fine.
Because I don't know, but I think inborn in my nature this pantheistic spirit, and here Sheikh al-Ishraq is claiming it in
He's
its
saying
full beautiness.
he is. Another debate I have had with Walbridge and that entire tendency of interpreting Suhrawardi is that this whole notion that Suhrawardi's metaphysics is the Isalat al-Mahiyya, the primacy of quiddity, and is against the Isalat al-Wujud, is not a perspective that you will find articulated by Suhrawardi himself. In fact, the first time we hear this point of view imputed to Suhrawardi is by Qutbuddin Shirazi, who came after Shahruzuri, who was the second major commentator of Suhrawardi. But when you read things like this, and also when you read the Hikmat al-Ishraq, it is very clear, even though his expression is not as developed as, say, Ibn Arabi or Mullah Sadr or that school, yet he is articulating the same thing. He's saying the same thing. So this, in my opinion, throws a big spanner, not just in the works of someone like Walbridge, which I generally think is not a good scholar, but it throws a spanner even in the classification made in the second, third generation amongst Islamic philosophers in trying to create this artificial category between those who uphold the primacy of quiddity, asalat al-mahiyya, versus those who stand on the side of the Isalat al-Wujud, the primacy of being. With Suhrawardi, we're beginning to see this is just, it's not the case at all. Yeah,
Thank you very much, Sidi.
no problem. No problem at all. Who wants to go next? Jeff or Riaz, either one of you guys.
Yeah, sure, I'll go. A couple of things that kind of piqued my interest. So on chapter 3, the influx of the Great Testament. So what I noticed with stanza 7, I think what makes this one different, maybe I'm misreading it, is that it makes it seem like this embrace of the light, instead of being like some switch that's flicked on, it sort of talks about the labor in it. And I was just kind of wondering what is it that keeps the seeker moving when they're not quite, I don't know, I guess shrouded in light. What is it that keeps them moving? Is it hope? And,
The nostalgia for it, the nostalgia for the homeland. That's why with Suhrawardi, I mean, the way that we define his concept of enlightenment is homecoming, which was basically the entire thrust of the Tale of the Occidental Exile. You come back to yourself. You come back to your asl, your origin, your source, which is yourself. There's no going towards something. It is returning. It's stripping the foreign from that which is indigenous to you.
okay, I see. That makes sense. And then 28, I also found pretty interesting. Well, I found it kind of depressing in a sense. O thou to whom God hath granted a portion of this world, knowingest thou not that he who hopeth for the permanence of this perishing thing is as one who would stitch the daylight to his garment that it depart not, or as one who would fashion the shadow with the stake. And I don't know, what about those things that are perishing but which are very beloved to us, like the health of our parents,
Sure.
our loved ones, our children? I find it to be a tough pill to swallow.
Well, it is a tough pill to swallow, but as we know, and as my own experience has shown, these are also things that at some point you will be demanded to detach from. That's why this sort of call is for, in a sense, an elect that have that ability to strip themselves of the entanglements of the world, including parentage, including, parent, all of these things, ties of kin, what have you. You will be tested with every last one of these things. And the closer to you and dearest to you, the more you will be tested by it.
Okay, I see. Thank you. That was all I was wondering about.
No worries. Jeff,
Hello.
hi.
Yeah, that's wow. I feel like I'm being admonished at the same time that I'm being enlightened when I read through that. It's like being in heaven and hell simultaneously, really. Like there's really taking a strip off me in every conceivable way, while at the same time elevating me. So I don't know, is very paradoxical that way. But yeah, it's a hard read. I mean, I found it even harder than the Quran. I mean, like reading the Quran is almost a piece of cake compared to reading this because there's a certain amount of detachment when you're reading the Quran. I mean, you can read it, kind of superficially and still retain this kind of detachment from it. Whereas this is so intimate that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you are in the center of it and God's ripping you to shreds, basically. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make that
That's a great,
observation.
That's an awesome observation. There's a saying amongst the Urafan, amongst the Gnostics, that you read the Quran as if it is being directly addressed to you personally, the entire book. And what Suhrawardi seems to me to have done in his retelling of the book, capital B, is he's done exactly this very thing. And he's executed it as these liturgies in his own cosmological and philosophical register. This is the beauty of these liturgies. It's genius, pure genius, what he's done.
It's not hard to see reading through these influxes. It's not hard to see his claim to prophethood. I mean, it's pretty evident. In fact, in my opinion, this is just me talking. It seems even more evident than other. Like, I hate to mention Muhammad and the Quran, but I mean that's pretty evident too. But you know what I mean? It's different though. They're kind of almost talking in different language, the same, but where Muhammad seems to be, describing historical events. You know what I mean? Through his enlightened wisdom and revelations. This is more direct. He's like Suhrawardi's not so much concerned with explaining history and antecedents as much as he's just trying to explain like the gist of everything.
This is Corban would bow at your feet for that observation. Yeah, that's essentially what's going on. Although you can make the argument kind of by inference that you can read in historical events into this, but yeah, by and large, you hit the nail on the head. Is that the Quran is addressing a historical unfoldment, whereas Suhrawardi is looking primarily vertical. So the dramaturgy here is, you can say the Quran on one level is a horizontal dramaturgy, whereas Suhrawardi's fixation is completely vertical.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I like that. I noticed when you were reading the influxes, or I'm sorry, the sanctifications of each station, when you got to the moon, which I fully anticipated was going to be the ninth intellect, I think you said you referred to it, said it should be the 10th intellect.
It ought to
and
be
then you
the
said,
10th.
but anyway, so
Well,
I'm just curious.
The lunar and sublunar is the realm of the active intellect. But then we have another stanza that just addresses the active intellect itself, but without mentioning its notational hierarchy. So maybe that is a slip of the manuscript, of all of the copyists who copied from one another. Or maybe Suhrawardi is trying to communicate something else, but the moon ought to be the 10th.
Okay, well, to be honest, I'm not sure I understand that, but that's all right because I'm just going through the classical enumeration. Like typically, the moon is associated with the number 9. And I think he kind of followed that pattern from Saturn through the moon, from 3 down through to 9, according to that normal template, if you know what I mean, right?
Well,
and then 10 would be the elements.
But
I
the
would have
active
thought.
intellect, which the moon is directly associated with, at least even in most elements of Suhrawardi's cosmology, is outright classified as being the 10th intellect.
Okay.
So it could,
Okay.
the moon can occupy the ninth station of the planetary horizons from the fixed stars, etc. But as the intellect itself, it needs to be the 10th intellect. At least this is the standard schema.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. I don't think I have anything else to ask right now.
I would
But,
love to get in a church somewhere and start to read from some of these liturgies and just to see people's reaction. Some Baptist Bible Belt church, these people would probably be nodding and amening without even realizing what it is.
Exactly. In fact, it's funny you say that. I was thinking that earlier, that reading it, I feel like I'm in church. Like I have to put myself, I'm like the preacher and the the pulpit or whatever at the same time. And yeah, that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. Mary, are you there?
I'm here.
Great.
I'm here if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yeah, this is just pretty mind-blowing to me, the whole these last couple of influxes, but the whole work. I mean, Suhrawardi has such a a way about him
Mm.
that really brings all the strands together. I think what I liked about this is just how Zoroastrian in character it was. I don't know how much of that is Suhrawardi and how much of that is the rendering here, but I loved all the mentions of like Srasha and the sort of angelophanic like personalities that are called down. It's very interesting the way that this cosmogony is like imbued with this sort of life.
Mm. I mean,
Um,
this is a, I've said this to a few Thelemites in the past. I mean, this Suhrawardi is, at least in this form of the liturgies, is a ceremonial magician's wet dream. You know,
right.
why are you folks messing with the Kabbalah where you got this? You know?
Honestly, even when they have the Quran, this is kind of feels like reading the Quran for the first time because, before I had read the Quran, I was on the fence about revelation as a practice. I was still kind of thinking about it and how to position it. And it was only when I read that I was like, oh my gosh, this all comes from somewhere. This is undeniable. This is really cool. And that's how this feels.
Yes.
It's just a very exciting thing to read. I have so many thoughts, I can't really organize them all.
Well, glad you feel that way, because I've felt that way since I first encountered this book. And this is what gets me, is why the scholarly community has been so shy of being all over this work. You know, we should have had like several different editions and renditions of this by now. You know, given that Suhrawardi studies is 100 years old now. But it's you see, just more like what I said in the introduction, that there's a kind of a conspiracy of silence, as it were, between the religious seminary and the Ivory Tower to domesticate Suhrawardi, because this sort of stuff for some reason is destabilizing to their narrative of Suhrawardi.
Well, it's a neglected religious tradition. It destabilizes a lot. I feel like if any real credence is given to it, because like I was just talking about, then you'd have to consider the revelatory origin of it, which obviously threatens both the parties you mentioned, the Western academia and dogmatists.
I tell you what, years ago, well, we were still doing public tea ceremonies. This influx to the intellects is something I would read before all of the sessions. And I tell you that once you went into the astral, the impression from that prayer that one had invoked before the session, you were seeing these entities, literally, that one had invoked through this invocation of Suhrawardi.
I've always had this sort of esoteric like guidepost that when a name or a word is spoken, it draws some attention to it. And this seems to be a principle that Suhrawardi is leaning really heavily on throughout here. These invocations are really powerful and really direct and deeply layered. There's just really there's too many like Quranic allusions and interesting alchemical and Zoroastrian spins to really single anything out and talk about it. I mean, it's the sort of work, and I think that only really great sages can pull this off. You see it in Taoism sometimes, but it's the sort of work that demands study and demands investigature, and this is how it's like drawing its attention. It's just really a masterclass on Suhrawardi's part. It impresses me maybe more than Mullah Sadra or Ibn Arabi did, just because of how direct and forceful it is and how independent it is. It's really kind of doing something new.
Yeah, it is. It's very intimate. This is the thing with this, and also the visionary narratives, but this especially for me comes across as being extremely intimate. Suhrawardi speaks to a level, especially for someone who was taking him at his word. The words penetrate in an extremely intimate way. He grabs you and pulls you into his world. Take a look.
A friend of mine, I was showing some of Qurban to some of my friends, and one of them, she mentioned his writing style as radical sincerity, and that's kind of what I feel is going on here. Is he's just radically sincere and earnest and open, and he's been rewarded with a sort of rhetoric for that vulnerability that he's displaying.
Yeah. And
so it goes for someone that predicts their own death, right? For someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine this being read in among some of the church-going people of where you are?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I think they'd like it. I think it also benefit them, if only that more people knew that, there's more scripture out there than just the Christian Bible or whatever.
I fully agree. And this was my motivation. I mean, you guys basically lit the fire under me, as it were, to finally pull this all together. And I've been sitting on all of this for 28 years now, just accumulating more and more of the manuscripts and put them all together. But yeah, I think now that it's out, inshallah, it will make waves, because I think this is important. It also, challenges some of the certainties that the ivory tower, since the time of Qurban, has attempted to domesticate Suhrawardi by, I keep mentioning Walbridge, but even some of those were not, Walbridgian people in the academy studying Suhrawardi. They're just so tepid to, challenge certain conventions, even though the evidence is right in front of them. To challenge some of these hand-me-downs about a given figure.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, religious studies have been ghettoized a little bit or colonized in some way, because if you do want to challenge these sort of traditional academic conventions, you have to go to like a specific theological college, and they're all Christian, they're all Catholic. I mean, here in America, that's how it is. I don't know about anywhere else.
It's the same. It's the same everywhere. Makes no difference.
Right. So it really is just sort of like emblematic of an ongoing marginalization of the revelation, basically.
The continuing revelation of God that never ends. But these ethical insights of his are just sublime, his insight into certain modalities of human behavior.
Was he drawing on any ethical works? I mean,
sure.
It almost sounds so original that it's like coming all from him, but
he would have been. I mean, if he studied in any kind of traditional madrasa, and was studying philosophy, he would have access to all kinds of ethical works. If he starts as being kind of an inheritor of Avicenna, Avicenna has composed quite a number of ethical works, but more in the Aristotelian vein. But as far as the Zoroastrian element is concerned, whatever Suhrawardi had received of the Zoroastrian corpus, and we don't know exactly what that may have been. Zoroastrianism has a real fixation of these sorts of questions.
I like the way that he bonds Zoroastrianism with Platonism, because I've long thought that they're very homologous, that they're very similar philosophically and ideologically. That's it. I really don't have anything else to say, just that I'm really enjoying it so far.
Great. Hossein, you are late. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions about the cosmology that he's presenting here. I mean, I agree that this is it's so comprehensive. I mean, it's his entire cosmology in this one influx, and it's just there's so much to deal with. But there's just a couple of questions. One's a little more, I guess, exploratory. You know, I've always wondered, because I've known about his planetary prayers for a long time. I've always wondered about the zodiac signs. You know, it almost seemed like a kind of gap to me, just just because, like, studying Hellenistic astrology and understanding that there's a kind of there are these kinds of distinct archetypes that you find with the zodiac signs that perhaps you can't find in the planets by themselves. So the way he deals with the sphere of the fixed stars is kind of interesting, because that's where you would find this if you found it at all. But it doesn't seem like he has any particular place for the signs. I mean, he doesn't even have. I think Corban points this out too, that he doesn't mention the second intellect, which would naturally go here. But instead, it's like this is the part of it where his cosmology just explodes into like an infinity of intellects and souls and bodies. So it's interesting. There's no one there's no one intellect and soul and body for that sphere, but it's just kind of like a indefinite number of them. So it's just something I noticed, that there isn't a place really for, like, he doesn't have a kind of visionary, at least here, there's no visionary, there's no component of the visionary cosmos that corresponds to like 12 persons, for example, that you would have for each of the signs, even though he mentions the zodiac signs in other places, like we saw. And I mean, just kind of answering my own question, the reason that might be the case is because in a way, the zodiac signs are these abstractions, right? Because the constellations are not necessarily the same as the signs, and at least in Western astrology. And so I wonder if that has something to do with it, that when it comes to the planets and the stars, there's a kind of direct visionary, like physical visionary grip that you can have on them with the signs.
For him, obviously there is. I mean, he is turning the whole Avicennan cosmos into a very animate, personified kind of thing, and then applying these Zoroastrian Avestan names to them, and then making associations and equivalences with certain elements of that with the Islamic one, like Surah Osha, Sorush is created with the active intellect and Gabriel. So this is very different. And one thing that differs between Suhrawardi and Avicenna is that Avicenna's, astrotheology has a limit, right? So he wants to make very definite numbers of stars and constellations, even on the element of the fixed stars. Whereas Suhrawardi doesn't want to play, he takes all these limits away and says there are none. That's the difference between him and Avicenna in that respect. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it was deliberate on his part to leave any mention of the second intellect out.
Who knows? I mean, look, with this particular text, because the first actual copy we have is that Hagia Sophia manuscript, what I found when I was looking at all these other manuscripts is that rather than these manuscripts fixing problems in the original Hagia Sophia manuscripts, they're introducing more problems in their transcription of the text. And Corban kind of saw this and kind of expressed it in one way. But, someone who is properly philologically trained, and especially who knows the philosophy of Suhrawardi, like Corban did, can very easily fix these problems, right? Without having to rely on, the subsequent manuscripts other than as a kind of a reference point, and just notation. This is why I think the approach of that Polish dude, Łukasz Piatak, is actually a backwards perspective. In my opinion, you cannot actually assert on the creation of a critical text when you don't have contemporaneous manuscripts. So Hagia Sophia 2144 is copied 30-something years, 38 years after the death of Suhrawardi, right? The next manuscript that we know of is almost 100 years from that date, right? And it is full of problems that one doesn't notice in the Hagia Sophia. And it is not, in my opinion, as if that scribe was trying to fix the problems of the Hagia Sophia transcription. It's as if that the scribe wasn't understanding what they were reading. That is the more likely explanation. So if this is true, then because we don't have contemporaneous manuscripts, we must instead use that Hagia Sophia manuscript as the stemma, and then, very meticulously, but without interpolating the text as Piatak did, recreate the text based on the flow of the Hagia Sophia manuscript. Because I think by and large, with certain solecisms and mistranscriptions and whatnot, I think whatever manuscript that the transcriber of the Hagia Sophia 2144 did, they were working with a manuscript close to the time of Suhrawardi. If not the actual autograph, someone would transcribe it from the autograph, right? So that is a much better method than the one that Piatak. Piatak is using a very common, tried, and extremely problematic Orientalist scholarly approach for critical text creation. But in his case, what it ended up doing is to corrupt the text in several significant instances, which I draw attention to within the notes. So to go back to the question of the second intellect, right? Possibly, I think the only plausible argument at this point is to say that the manuscript, the transcriber of 2144 either didn't transcribe it, but this particular, or Suhrawardi left it out. And then that raises some very significant questions as to why. But I think the plausible explanation is that it may have been mistranscribed. And because it was mistranscribed, this then gives us the explanation as to why when he comes to the sphere of the moon, he calls it the ninth intellect rather than the 10th intellect. This is the only explanation for that.
Well, my understanding of that is different. I've always understood the active intellect, whether in Suhrawardi or Ibn Sina, as being distinct from the intellect of the moon. That the active intellect is actually the result of the self-contemplation or the contemplation of God, right? That the intellect of the moon has, and that would then make the elemental plane the theurgy of the active intellect. So that for me that resolves it. Although Suhrawardi makes it a little bit more complicated because he actually has intellects for each of the elements.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm saying what I'm saying. Yeah. So then what become, who are these Arbab and No, or the lords of the species for the elements? If this Avicennan theory of the active intellect is taken literally.
Yeah, I don't know. That was one of the questions I had written here was it would kind of, on my reading, it would double up the intellect for the Earth. There would be, you would have Esfendarmuth,
Yeah.
right, and then you would have you would have. But I thought maybe perhaps it was something like, because the active intellect is the angel of humanity, it you know informs the bodies of human beings, and that's kind of what it does, and also emanates the souls and the intellects. What's mentioned here is that it's the governor of the elemental world, but it is different from Ibn Sina because it doesn't seem to actually emanate the elements themselves.
Mm.
So yeah, and it's
The
really
elements
complicated.
themselves are each have their own lords.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The one other question I had, sort of to clarify something. Speaking of the intellects of the elements, that paragraph 15, it seems like what he wants to do is that there's this tripartite structure that's supposed to hold throughout the entire hierarchy, so that it's always intellect, soul, body.
Mm.
I think in the classical Avicennian scheme, you would have the elements, the souls of all things on earth, and then the intellects of human beings. But here, you have these different intellects for the elements, and you have lords of the talismans of minerals and lords of the talismans of plants, and for animals. And so the question becomes, how are we supposed to think of there being souls of elements in addition to these arbab? Right, because that would complete the picture. You would have souls of elements, and you would have souls of minerals, and souls. We know about souls of plants and souls of animals from the Aristotelian scheme, but it seems like to complete this picture, we would also have to have souls of elements and souls of minerals.
Mm. We would, yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a question mark.
Hey, here's a project for you. Maybe, I mean, if you need a publication, you can review this and send it to a journal. You're supposed to be doing me a favor.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I am steeped in it.
And be fair. I mean, if there's things you disagree with, put it in the review. So it's a proper review. It's just, something gushing. But yeah, at least this puts it into the review stream in the scholarly literature.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worthy of one. I'm a little slow on being out there. I tend to kind of, I'm very hermetic in the way that I do my work, but yeah, perhaps. Okay, that's all I had.
Cool.
Thank you.
No worries. Anybody else want to say something? Now,
Yeah.
Sure. Go for it.
This is kind of an observation. Must have thrown everybody for a loop when he was talking about when he said what he said at the end of the 3rd chapter, and then he started saying, okay, prayers for Mars, prayers for Venus, prayers for Saturn. That might have been what really did him in. If the other stuff didn't do him in, that's probably what really did him.
There are prayers to the planets. You find subtle, not so subtle ones in the Picatrix and in the Rasail of the Ikhwan Safa, they mention that the Sabaeans were, praying to the planets, and they instance sort of by inference, a couple of these litanies. Ibn Wahshiyah, or the pseudo Ibn Wahshiyah, is known for it in his Nabatean agriculture, which is another very important occult text. So this is not something that Suhrawardi fabricates. There was a genre, pre-existing genre to this stuff already. But what he does is very overt. And also he is writing these himself. So he's not literally drawing from other people in the past and reproducing it. He's writing his own. And he's doing it in, obviously an extremely syncretic way, writing in Arabic while invoking Avestan, Zoroastrian terms. Even at one point, as I read that last piece, he's invoking God in Avestan while writing in Arabic. This stuff would have driven these exoteric jurists up the wall, yeah. And he's saying, he's not, in these liturgies, he is not hiding the fact that he's making a claim. And also, his points of departure about, deprecating elements of creation, is deprecating its author. These are things that throw these sorts of fuqaha into a loop, because they don't have ready-made answers to something like that. This throws off their entire worldview, and so then whatever response they try to formulate from, especially from the Asherite theology that was predominant, amongst the Sunnis during that period, Orthodox Sunnis, it's very easily, by someone like Suhrawardi, he would have demolished their arguments in 2 seconds, which is what they said, that every argument that they hurled at Suhrawardi, he would just completely unravel their arguments as nonsensical very fast.
Yeah, it's really cool. Thanks for putting this all together. And I especially like in the footnotes how you will, especially talk about how he's weaving together Platonism, Islam, and Zoroastrianism. I think it's really good to see that, especially for somebody who's not so familiar with 2 of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries. Anybody want to have final thoughts for today? Hassan?
I would like Hussein asked all the question I wanted to ask about the chapter, the exaltation of the intellects and the souls and the elements. Just want to further deepen his question about the explosion of the intellects. So in the schema presented here, we have the first intellect, then the second intellect, and the next sphere, multiplicity of intellects. And then proceeding again, intellect one by one, going to the sphere which is maybe below the moon or above the moon. Again, for second time, we have a multiplicity of intellects where, yes, ukul ashabul anasir. But it is not only the intellects of the elements, but intellects of the 3 kingdoms and so on. Here, I think if we think principally that even this explosion of the intellects are mentioned only in 2 places, these 2 spheres, can we generalize it and say that it may happen, not only may happen, but it happens on every level? What I mean, again, if I'm not quoting wrongly Hayakilun Nur, where it is said that the multiplicity of divine visions of a given intellect, every vision, divine vision, creates another intellect. Which if we take even of the level of first intellect, he is creating infinite multiplicity of other intellects on the next level. Then if we take every one of them, the process repeats itself. And if we take a comparison or example of it, It is the hadith which Qaisari quotes in his Muqaddimah about Jibril alayhi salam when he's taking a bath in the river of life. And when he goes out of the river, from every drops which falls from him, another intellect, another angel is created. Just to terminology, angel, intellect, the same thing. And then we can say, okay, if we take this as a principle, what is the problem? That this thing repeats itself for everyone, for the angel which is created from Jibril alayhi salam. Again, he goes to the bath, and from every drop which falls of him, multiplicity of other intellects is created. Because somewhere it was written that Sheikh al-Ishraq, Sheikh Suhrawardi, sees the problem that here on earth we have multiplicity of creations, and earth is material world. It is alamul mulk, which is supposed to be the most impoverished world of existence. And then when we go to Alamul Malakut and Alamul Jabarut, instead of richness and infinity of beings, we have only the Ibn Sina or Aristotelian schema, just 10 intellects, and that is all. But here, if we take this approach, it solves the problems in some way.
It solves the problem in a very beautiful way, and especially in this very animate, ecstatic kind of way that Suhrawardi lays this all out. It makes it real. The Avicenna's, other than, Avicenna's own visionary recitals, the only one of which we really have, is Hayat Niakzon. His vision of the universe is very square. It's not really, it's like a machine in the way that he lays all his cosmology out. Whereas here is alive, completely and utterly animate. So, trying to enumerate it in the same way that Avicenna did, it's just silly for Suhrawardi to do it that way.
Not that it's something wrong in itself, because I understand that they are putting these intellects in accordance with the planets which have observational movement according to other stars, and there are indeed 7. But the approach that they are the only ones is the wrong approach. We can say, okay, they are major ones, we have direct observation of them, but how many else exist, that is an open question.
That's the open question. And Suhrawardi doesn't want to put a limit to this question. He doesn't want to enumerate it, as I said to Hussein, whereas the Peripatetics and Avicennians specifically do. They limit that number and no more. And to Suhrawardi, that occurs as a bit stupid. Why? Why do you say that?
Okay, thank you, Sidi.
No problem. If nobody has anything more to say, we'll leave it here for today. For the next Suhrawardi section, just read the next 3, which is the influx of recollection, and then that's number 6. And number 7 is the influxes of confession for each day, and then the influx of the supreme sanctification for each day. So these are for the next session, and then the session after that, we will read through the entirety of the prayers to the planets together with their magical instructions in one session. And then after that, we'll do all those prayers, additional prayers for that final session. So we got maybe 3 more sessions of this. And then once we finish this, we will go straight into the Hikmat al-Ishraq. So as you probably, after reading the visionary narratives and now reading the liturgies, we're going to go into the Hikmet al-Ishraq really prepared, and with different kind of eyes of looking at Suhrawardi than what normal philosophers look at it. So we will read the rational text more as a kind of an ecstatic placeholder, and read all of these things that we've been reading over the last 13, 14 sessions into the Hikmat al-Ishraq itself. So we'll leave that here for now. For those of you coming tomorrow to Ibn Arabi, I'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, if I don't see you tomorrow, I'll see you next week. Ya haq.